UFC Tampa, we got Colby Covington versus Joaquin Buckley. And I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on Colby Covington in this fight. I saw a lot of fighters were overwhelmingly picking Buckley. I don't think I saw a single one picking Colby. I see the sports books. A lot of them had him at plus 200. Now I'm seeing the odds shifted a little bit. I'm seeing Colby at plus 170, and I like those odds for Colby. I don't know how many times we've seen Colby be an underdog where we could place money on him and get pretty good value. When you look at it, I think the deck is definitely stacked against him here versus Buckley. Taking the fight on, I think, 3, 4 weeks notice. Not sure exactly how long it was, but a couple weeks notice. Buckley had a full camp. Colby's coming off a loss. Buckley's on a 5-fight winning streak. So, I think a lot of talk was made of Colby switching gyms again and not working with the MMA Masters for this fight, working with a little team that he built. And I think that really matters for a lot of fighters, but not so much if you're a fighter based out of Vegas or based out of South Florida, where there's so many good gyms and you can go a mile this way, a mile that way, and get really good work. And then I saw reports that he was working with Fight Sports or some of the affiliates of Fight Sports, and those are really good gyms in South Florida. If you look into them, I know they're a little small chain. One of the gyms is owned by Cyborg Abreu, another gym is owned by Jay-Z Cavalcante. So a couple of little affiliate gyms, and they all have legit coaches. There's definitely some legit guys in that room. So if Colby's working out with those guys, he's definitely going to have some legit training partners. So I don't think he'd have much issue getting ready for a fight against anybody working with some of those guys. So the question is, if he took this fight 3, 4 weeks ago, how much training was he doing before his little mini camp started? So I think a lot of questions with this fight. I think I'm wondering myself if Chael is physically going to be in his corner. Like, are we going to see Coach Chael come out tonight? Because I feel like a lot of times, depending on who you have in your corner, fighting is very mental. I know the argument's always made of how much mental versus how much physical. I feel like it's a lot more mental than physical. Like, the physical part, yeah, is your cardio in check? Yeah, how good is your skills? But so much of it is mental, and how do you do that night when the lights are on, and how do you perform there? And I feel like with someone like Coach Chael, he's going to say the right things that get you ready to run through a fucking wall. So is Chael physically going to be in his corner? And I feel like coming in here, I think people need to forget about the Leon fight. I feel like everyone's hung up on the Leon fight, and you could go back and watch that fight and see that was Colby's worst performance. He definitely didn't look like himself in there. Then when you hear him come out and say that he broke his foot in the fight, you watch the fight again, you see in the first, I think, like a minute of the fight, he kicks Leon's elbow, and then you see him just take a minute off, 2 minutes off, and then, be able to stay in there, which is a testament to how strong he is mentally, because he definitely looked like he had something going on. And if he's telling me he broke his foot, I'm going to think he broke his foot. So I'm not going to think the guy's lying about something like that. And then I think Buckley's good, but I think his grappling is obviously his biggest weakness. He's had a lot of trouble in the past with way lesser skilled grapplers than Colby. And, if you go even a little bit deeper and you look at Buckley's winning streak, I think his winning streak's a lot better on paper than it actually is. You got Luque on there. And then if you look at the Luque fight, Luque was a competitive fight. I feel like Luque was a little bit behind, but then Luque went for a takedown, got stuffed on the takedown, and then kind of just shut off and was just covering up while Buckley rained down punches. And I feel like, he was one fight removed from the brain bleed and maybe never fighting again and having a lot of medical problems. So I don't think he was really comfortable getting hit. And Luque, didn't fight great. Buckley fought great. Buckley took advantage of it and wound up getting a TKO victory. You look at his fight with Imavov, which he lost. Imavov used his grappling to beat him. There's a fight with, what the fuck is his name? Abdul Azak Al Hassan was ragdolling him, and that was a split decision, and then you can go even further. You look at 6 years ago, he got completely dominated with the wrestling by Logan Storley, who's no slouch, probably a more credentialed wrestler than Colby, but that similar style of heavy wrestling. And then his biggest win is the Wonder Boy fight. So that's a fight where I don't put too much stock in it, because Wonder Boy, he's not the Wonder Boy of old, the Wonder Boy we all think of. He's 41 now. And I've always talked about how it's a crazy statistic. At 35, you don't win fights. The 35-year-olds at title fights under, I think, 205 or 185 is insane. It's like 2-30, and the two wins are Tyron Woodley, which is crazy. So Wonder Boy, since he turned 35, is 3-6. So he's definitely not the Wonder Boy that we all once knew. He's definitely not, you know, the Wonder Boy we all think of when we think of Wonder Boy. So the stats don't work in the favor of Colby here. He's 36, but seeing Colby, he's always took good care of himself. Since he turned 35, he's 0-1, just that one fight with Leon. You know, you might want to lean toward the youth, which is Buckley at 30, but I think Colby's a different animal. You know, this is Colby's 7th straight main event, Buckley's first main event. We got a weird statistic is that Colby, you know, once guys get to a certain level, you see them fight less each year. Maybe you'll get 1 to 2 fights a year, but Colby's been fighting one time each calendar year since 2019. So, I mean, inactivity is always a thing. Ring rust, things like that come into play a little bit. People thought that that was what we might have saw against Leon Edwards, and now this is another long layoff for him. So that'll be a factor to look at. One interesting stat that I saw is Colby is 1-3 in title fights, 16-1 in non-title fights. So that's pretty glaring. I mean, that this will be another 5-round fight, but a non-title fight. It's almost like, you know, he's fighting the elite in those title fights. So I think there's a big difference between top 15, top 10, top 5, top 3, like the elite. I think the elite is a big difference between the bottom of the division, the bottom of the rankings, and the top guys. So he's been fighting the top guys, you know, Leon, Usman. You could even throw Masvidal in there, even though I feel like that wasn't the best version of Masvidal, but Colby also made him look terrible. But, you know, 16-1 in non-title fights, that's a pretty telling statistic of how good the guy really is. You know, the 1-3 in title fights, it's hard to become champion. You see it with so many guys. It's definitely a difficult task. So I think there's a lot of questions coming into this one, and I think Colby's going to have the answers. You know, short notice, switching gyms, coming off a loss, Buckley on a 5-fight winning streak. I think when the bell rings, none of that's going to matter, and I think Colby's going to drag him to the 7th layer of hair, and I think he's going to dominate the fight with wrestling, cage control. You know, I think, again, there's a huge difference between the elite, the top guys, the top 3, the top 5, and the top 10, top 15. And I think a lot of times you see it, like especially at 170, there's a lot of strikers. The grapplers, I feel like, are always toward the top of the division because grappling is, you have to be a good grappler to be an elite guy. There's nobody except maybe I could think of like Adesanya or Pereira, and they were world-class kickboxers that could get to the top without high-level grappling. And then you saw their grappling's a little slept on. Like, they definitely have better grappling than people give them credit for. So I'm going with Colby in this one. I like Colby at plus 170. If I could find him at plus 200, I love it. If I could find him at anything over plus 200, I love that. So I don't think age will be a factor in this one. I think Colby defies the odds, and I like Colby to beat Buckley. I'm going to go with unanimous decision.